John Deya. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Pan-African Lawyers Union, PALU. I'm also the chairperson of the coordinating committee of STBC, Stop the Bleeding Consortium, who work together on economic justice issues in Africa. If you ask me what was the biggest single issue in Africa this year, I would say it was the cost of living and crisis related with the cost of living. In many countries, citizens are not able to afford the bare necessities of life. This has created quite a bit of disillusionment. In some area, it has led to unconstitutional changes of government. The biggest governance issue is not even so much the constitutional changes of government, but domestic resource mobilization. Is where we look at the issue of illicit financial flows and how our countries are losing money, especially trade-based losses of money from big companies, quite often in the extractive industry, which make sure that they pay as little tax as possible so that our governments are starved of money with which to provide the public goods that we want. In the context of Africa, this was addressed in 2015 by a landmark report by the high-level panel on illicit financial flows from Africa that was chaired by His Excellency, retired President Thabo Mbeki, and the African Union adopted it, so it became part of the law and policy of the African Union. And it urges countries to combat IFFs. IFFs consist of trade-based IFFs, which is about 60% of the problem, crimes such as laundering, trafficking in drugs, in persons, in guns, in goods, which is about 35% of the problem, and corruption, bribery of public officials, which is 5% of the money that Africa loses. But bribery and corruption is actually cross-cutting, because this is what makes many public officials agree to look the other side, to pass weak laws, to enforce them even more weakly, and so on. So when we look at what the Mbeki panel report recommended that we do about it, a lot of it is about converting what we call the illicit to the illegal, because some of the ways in which we're losing money are clearly illegal, like trafficking, like laundering, like tax evasion. But some of them are not really illegal. They may be immoral, but not really illegal, like aggressive tax avoidance, transfer mispricing, what we call base erosion and profit shifting. Basically, a process by which you'll find a multinational corporation operating in a country has hundreds of subsidiaries. So every single input that is needed into the mining enterprise is supplied by one of the subsidiaries at inflated prices. And then any output that comes out of the mine is sold to the subsidiaries at highly deflated prices, so that it looks like the inputs are high, the outputs are low, the taxable income is very low. So this can be addressed by legislation, tightening laws around taxation, tightening laws around beneficial ownership, so you know who really owns what company, putting in place laws around arm's length pricing. So if you're going to buy goods or services from your own subsidiaries, that the price that you use for purposes of taxation must be what was the market price. So a lot of work goes on in this. There's work for parliaments, there's work for executive arms of government, there's work for revenue authorities, and there's also work for civil society, especially in investigating and finding out where corruption is, where IFFs is. And there's a role also for the international community, because we have to look at the rules under which commerce is done generally, especially at a time when a lot of our business is becoming digitized. This requires that we reform the way taxation is done. Right now, a lot of the rules around how we do international business are defined by the OECD, which actually is a club of rich nations, but with some tolerance for some of the poor nations. So a huge campaign of the year has been to move this discussion to the UN, where each state has one voice and one vote, at least nominally. So there's campaigns and there's drafting towards a process that will create a UN tax convention. So our call to all our governments is be strong in pushing for a robust UN tax body. And our call to the citizens themselves is hold your governments to account. Talk to your member of parliament, talk to your minister, talk to your president, collect yourself around civil society, so then we are able to pass rules that are fair for everybody.